Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to see what the Overlord virus is. One of the most terrifying, monstrous, and lethal viruses ever conceived is the Overlord virus. It doesn't just infect or kill. It reanimates bodies, distorts flesh, and turns them into genuine machines of destruction. Each infected individual is a living aberration, driven by superhuman strength, unstoppable reflexes, and a perpetual pain that fuels their rage. It is an experiment in absolute horror, where science and cruelty intertwine to create beings that defy all logic, reminding us that some horrors are not born from war, but from human ambition pushed to the extreme. That is why, in this video, I will explain in detail the history and origins of the Overlord virus. To do this, I will first give you a summary of its story in the movie. Then I will talk about the physical appearance of the infected, their personality, and their incredible known abilities and weaknesses. The plot begins on the eve of D-Day, in 1944. A platoon of American paratroopers is preparing for a mission that, on the surface, seems simple but crucial. Infiltrate enemy territory, reach a French village occupied by the Nazis, and destroy the radio tower that stands there. The tower is vital for German communications. If it is not eliminated, Nazi defenses could hinder the Allied advance during the Normandy landing. The tension is at its peak. They know that the success of millions of men depends on them completing their objective. The journey quickly turns into a nightmare. As the plane enters French skies, German anti-aircraft fire begins to open up. Explosions shake the aircraft, illuminating the night with red and orange flashes. The paratroopers jump one by one, but as soon as they do, they become easy targets. Many die in midair, struck by shrapnel. Others fall to the ground lifeless. Only a handful manage to survive, though scattered, wounded, and disoriented. Among those who remain standing are Private Boyce, a young man with a strong moral compass, and Corporal Ford, hardened and pragmatic, willing to complete the mission at any cost. The small group, badly wounded and missing much of their equipment, advances through the forests until they reach the vicinity of the village. It is there that they come into contact with Chloe, a young French woman who lives in a humble house with her little brother and her sick aunt. Chloe is wary, but she soon realizes that these men are not like the Nazis who have been oppressing the village. She tells them about the daily terror, looting, abuse, executions, and constant surveillance by German soldiers. Her words paint a picture of oppression that goes beyond military occupation. However, the true nightmare has yet to be revealed. During an infiltration of the radio tower, Boyce separates from the group and accidentally discovers a hidden access that leads him to the basement of the complex. What he finds there defies all logic. A secret laboratory with dark corridors, cells, and operating rooms stained with blood. The Nazi scientists, under orders from high command, are carrying out macabre experiments on the villagers. Boyce watches in horror as he sees deformed bodies, prisoners moaning in pain, and humans barely retaining a trace of humanity. The discovery is devastating. The Nazis are developing an experimental serum with a terrifying purpose, a project intended to change the course of the war. This substance can revive the dead, granting them superhuman strength, abnormal resilience, and brutal ferocity. The cost, however, is horrific. The subjects lose all sense of identity, twist into grotesque mutations, and become uncontrollable violent beasts. The nightmare hits close to home when one of their own comrades falls victim to this serum, transforming into a monstrous creature. This confirms what Boyce feared. The serum not only revives, but completely corrupts both body and mind. The soldiers then realize that their mission has changed. It is no longer just about destroying the radio tower, but also about eliminating the underground laboratory and all its horrors. The climax arrives when the ruthless Nazi officer Waffner responsible for the village and the experiments, is captured by the Americans. In a desperate and arrogant act, Waffner injects himself with the serum. What follows is a horrifying transformation. His body tears apart, his bones crack, and his musculature expands until he becomes a nightmarish, almost indestructible creature. The final battle unfolds in the narrow corridors of the laboratory. Explosions, fire, twisted bodies, and screams of pain fill the air. Boyce and Ford fight to the limits of their strength, combining courage and strategy to contain the monstrous Waffner. Finally, with superhuman effort, they manage to accomplish their dual objective. The radio tower is destroyed, and the underground laboratory is blown to pieces, burying under tons of rubble the experiments and the abominations created by the Nazis. The sacrifice is great, but necessary to prevent the serum from changing the course of the war. When dawn arrives, Boyce reports to his superiors. They ask if he found anything else in the village besides the destroyed tower. The young soldier, aware of what revealing the truth would mean, decides to lie. He assures them there was nothing important. The secret remains buried under the rubble, protected from the world, although Boyce knows that what he saw can never be erased from his memory. Now that we've thoroughly covered its history, I want to talk about the physical appearance of those infected by the Overlord virus, what we know about their personality and behavior, and explain their incredible known abilities and weaknesses. The infected of Overlord are a vision of absolute horror, an aberration that seems to emerge directly from a nightmare. Their bodies not only return to life, but do so in a distorted and unnatural manner, as if death had ceased to be a limit and resurrection had become an experiment in total deformation. Muscles bulge under the skin, as if the flesh were being forced to stretch beyond its natural limits, and bones appear twisted, fractured, or poorly fused, generating impossible postures and movements that are at once slow and explosively violent. They walk hunched, with uneven steps, while convulsive spasms and jerks ripple through their limbs, making each gesture seem like that of broken puppets struggling to maintain their own integrity. Their skin reflects a state of suspended decay, cadaverous grayish or greenish tones streaked with dark veins that seem to burn from within, and in some cases, deep scars, rudimentary sutures, and burns reveal failed attempts at repair after resurrection. Parts of the flesh appear torn, with muscles exposed and visible necrosis, giving them a grotesque and repulsive appearance that defies all biological logic. The faces of these creatures are the true center of terror. Bloodshot, bulging, and gleaming eyes radiate an almost tangible fury. Dislocated jaws reveal stained or broken teeth, and torn lips emit perpetual grimaces of pain. Their heads show swellings, asymmetries, or deformities that reinforce the sense that these creatures should never have existed. Their open mouths do not seem to smile or scream consciously, but are frozen in a silence full of suffering, like cries trapped in time. The limbs also reflect the violence of the transformation. Arms and legs are disproportionate, swollen, or irregularly elongated, and their movements are abrupt, powerful, and dangerous. Twisted fingers, blackened nails, and makeshift claws are constantly tensed, accompanied by muscle spasms that display the internal struggle of their bodies to maintain mobility. Their torsos are a macabre spectacle. Open ribs, torn skin, organs pulsing irregularly, as if the entire body rejected its own existence, yet was forced to remain upright. Each of these details, burned skin, exposed muscles, malformed bones, furious eyes, and twisted limbs, contributes to the feeling that we are facing something beyond human, an entity that combines suffering, strength, and deformity in a single organism, an aberration representing the cruelty and excess of Nazi science in its most grotesque and terrifying form. The infected of Overlord exhibit behavior that defies all human logic. They are not mere zombies driven by hunger. Their violence arises from a constant state of physical pain and mental confusion. Every movement seems like an internal struggle. Their tense, deformed, and spasmodic muscles react unpredictably, sometimes exaggeratedly fast, sometimes clumsily, as if the coordination of their own bodies is always on the verge of collapse. They attack without mercy, moving toward any living being like predators who know neither compassion nor fear, but with an aggressiveness that does not always follow a clear pattern, making their attacks unpredictable and terrifying. Despite having lost almost all human awareness, some infected show an echo of obedience, responding to the orders of the Nazis who created them. Though even this manifests in violent and abrupt movements, there is no elegance or strategy in their obedience. Each action seems more like a distorted reflex than a conscious decision. Their murderous instinct dominates any other emotion. They attack fallen comrades, animals, or even other infected if they perceive them as obstacles. This aggression is not limited to close contact. Sometimes they stalk briefly and explosively, instinctively observing and evaluating their victims before lunging with brutal force. Perpetual pain is another driving force behind their behavior. The infected do not attack merely out of hunger or survival instinct. Their own suffering makes them violent. They groan, growl, screech, and emit inhuman sounds while their bodies writhe and shake with constant spasms. Every wound, every torn muscle, every broken bone seems to fuel their rage, transforming pain into supernatural strength and speed. This mixture of agony and power makes them terrifying opponents because they never seem to tire or yield to the physical damage that would incapacitate normal beings. Their mobility is equally unsettling. They can crawl, run, or leap with superhuman force, combining the clumsiness of their deformed limbs with reflexes that surprise even trained soldiers. Their movements can change abruptly. One moment they seem to stumble or collapse, and the next they launch at their target with devastating precision. This creates a sense of complete unpredictability, as if the observer were witnessing a living body struggling to stay alive while simultaneously trying to destroy everything around it. Furthermore, their social behavior is practically non-existent. They do not cooperate rationally. Their interactions are chaotic, even hostile among infected, and any trace of residual humanity is erased by violence. However, it is observed that some appear to follow simple objectives, such as protecting a laboratory or attacking intruders, indicating that a minimal level of programming or instinct implanted by the scientists who created them remains, but always filtered through the chaos of their perpetual agony. The infected possess enormous strength, far beyond that of any trained human. Their hypertrophied, swollen, and tense muscles beneath torn skin allow them to rip wooden doors off their hinges, bend thin metal, and even throw fully grown men as if they were dolls. Every swing of their arms, every kick or charge conveys a terrifying power, accompanied by spasms that make it seem as though their bodies move almost independently, as if the serum's energy propels them beyond their conscious will. Even the heaviest objects become improvised weapons when the infected lift or hurl them. Their endurance is equally impressive. They can take gunshots, stabbings, or blunt impacts that would kill a normal human and still keep advancing. Bleeding wounds, broken bones, and severe burns do not halt their movement. Rather than slowing them down, pain seems to intensify their aggression, turning each attack into a desperate and violent act. Some infected even show partial regenerative capabilities, with deep cuts slowly closing as they continue attacking, making them extremely difficult to stop unless critical points are targeted. Their speed and agility are just as disconcerting. Despite their deformed bodies, they can move swiftly through tight spaces, jump obstacles, and charge their targets with terrifying precision. Their reflexes, enhanced by the serum, allow them to react to unexpected attacks or changes in their environment with abrupt yet effective movements, sometimes deflecting projectiles or striking before an enemy can evade. Every leap, turn, or sprint is violent, unpredictable, and conveys the sensation of a body writhing while executing superhuman maneuvers. Constant pain is both a weakness and a source of power. Their bodies live in perpetual agony. Muscular spasms, contortions, and grimaces of suffering are visible even in the midst of action. This combination of power and pain makes them unpredictable. An infected can change direction, charge, or attack with excessive force in an instant, guided more by physical impulses than strategy. However, these same traits bring significant vulnerabilities. Their dependence on the serum is absolute. Without it, the body rapidly begins to fail, muscles weaken, and organs collapse, causing the creature to lose mobility and strength within minutes. The transformation that grants them power also makes them unstable. Fractured bones, deformed joints, and exposed organs can affect coordination, causing collapses or erratic movements at critical moments. Despite their strength and endurance, critical points remain lethal. A direct blow to the head or brain instantly stops an infected, and massive attacks such as explosions, intense fire, or impacts that destroy vital organs are effective. Even physical overload can stop them. If they sustain too many injuries simultaneously, their deformed body cannot hold itself and collapses. In summary, the infected of Overlord are monsters that combine superhuman strength, impressive speed, sharp reflexes, and near-supernatural endurance, all while their bodies endure perpetual pain that amplifies their aggression. Yet, this extreme design also makes them vulnerable to certain strategic attacks. They rely on the serum, are physically unstable, and their vital points remain exposed, reminding us that, despite all their mutation, they are still human beings pushed beyond their natural limits.